Jake Paul wants to fight either Nate Diaz or Jorge Masvidal in MMA in the PFL, and he's prepared to offer $10 million to get the deal done. Paul signed with the organization last year and has since not competed in MMA, with his most recent booking being a boxing match against 57-year-old former boxing legend and icon Mike Tyson. Meanwhile, both names he has mentioned, former UFC fighters Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal, are set to compete against each other once more, this time in the boxing ring on June 1st. In November 2019, Masvidal defeated Diaz via controversial doctor stoppage in an MMA fight for the UFC. Since then, the interest in either men competing has waned as their careers lost the spark and they eventually both retired. Jake Paul is renowned for his ability to market a fight. Essentially, the only reason his fights get so many viewers is a large percentage of viewers would like to see the young, confident Disney actor turned boxer lose. Saying you want to fight in MMA is one thing, and actually competing is another, something that is yet to occur in the time since he has been signed with the PFL. Speaking on his podcast, Paul said, "I'm being so serious when I say that I want to fight them in MMA, either Masvidal or Diaz, in the PFL, $10 million offer for either one of those guys." Again, they will literally hide behind the fact, "Masvidal, you can't even box. What the F are you going to do coming over to MMA, bro? I'm from Miami, Florida, bro. F you. Don't disrespect me, effing bird brain." That's what he hides behind. Same with Paddy Pimblett, Sean Strickland, all of these guys hide behind these crazy things. But still, none of them have shown up to the table to talk any business about anything to make anything actually happen for a real fight, a real spar, whatever it is. So the offer still stands there. I want either one of those guys in MMA. Paul has faced Diaz already in an uninspiring boxing match that resulted in a unanimous decision for Paul. So it will be interesting to see which fighter, if either, ends up signing against Paul to compete in MMA. Would you be keen to finally see him step in and compete in MMA? Or is it essentially a pointless venture and he would just get melted on the floor like an armless baby? You tell me. Former double champ turned commentator Daniel Cormier has come out and made a claim on who he thinks should get the next shot for the BMF belt. A belt that most were lukewarm on to begin with and was widely considered a gimmick was given serious credence at UFC 300 as Max Holloway put on a career-defining performance against Justin Gaethje. A fight in which he was moving up a division to fight arguably the hardest hitting, most violent lightweight in the division, where a lot of people, myself included, wondered if he stood a chance. He came out and put on a striking clinic and punctuated the fight with an insane knockout that will be remembered for the rest of the promotion's long history. That fight elevated the status of the BMF belt, and now Daniel Cormier knows who he wants to see fight for it next: Aljamain Sterling. Now this would get a lot of people's blood boiling, as Aljamain is not a fan favourite given his wrestling-heavy fighting style. However, Cormier might have a point. He said, let me tell you who I think should be in the next BMF title fight. Aljamain Sterling. Put Aljo in the BMF title fight. Yes, put Aljo in the BMF title fight. If anybody is a BMF, they could do what Aljo did at UFC 300. You go up a weight class, you dominate somebody in the grappling like that. That's a BMF. It depends on what your criteria is for the definition of a BMF, but I think the consensus would fall on something like a fighter who will fight anyone, anytime, and is not afraid to put themselves in harm's way in order to win, and most importantly, puts on exciting fights. Aljamain made his featherweight debut at UFC 300, and whilst it was not a firefight or action-packed in the sense of a striking back and forth, it was by far the most significant display of dominance over an opponent on the card. Aljamain ended up with over 2 rounds of control time, threw almost 5 times the amount of strikes, and absorbed absolutely no damage from a dangerous boxer in Kattar. Whether this elevates him to the status of someone who is a BMF is up for debate, but there is no denying that he big-brothered Calvin Kattar to the point where it was almost embarrassing, and no doubt exposed a serious hole in his game. Aljamain may have single-handedly changed the trajectory of Calvin's career by giving future opponents the keys to beating Calvin. Do you think a shutout performance like that, no matter how unexciting, makes Aljamain worthy of a shot at the BMF belt? I personally would say no, because it will bog down the belt and dissolve its purpose to inspire fights, where guys like Holloway risk their reputation and chin to achieve greatness. But what do you think? That's all that's happening in MMA today, besides that Iranian guy kicking a ring girl. See you next time.